Some people dream about traveling. Clara dreamed about disappearing into the ocean, completely alone. Everyone told her it was impossible. She believed otherwise. This is her story. When Clara was 8 years old, her grandfather took her on a small fishing boat. She remembered the wind on her face. She remembered the sound of water against the boat. She remembered feeling, for the first time, completely free. From that day, Clara had one dream. One day, I will sail across the entire ocean, alone. Her parents laughed. That's a child's fantasy, they said. You'll grow out of it. But Clara never did. As Clara grew older, she didn't forget her dream. She fed it. At 16, she joined a local sailing club. At 20, she was racing boats on weekends. At 25, experienced sailors were asking her for advice. She learned to read the wind. She learned to read the waves. She learned what to do when nothing goes as planned. By the time Clara turned 30, she had spent over a decade on boats. She wasn't a dreamer anymore. She was a sailor. But there was still one thing she hadn't done. The big one. One evening, Clara sat with a map spread across her kitchen table. Her finger traced a line across the Atlantic, around the Cape, through open water for months. Alone, no crew, no one else on board. She knew the risks, storms, equipment failure, days without seeing another ship. Her friends thought she was joking until they realized she wasn't. You could die out there, one friend said. I know, Clara replied, but I could also die never doing it. She spent the next year preparing, training her body, studying weather patterns, fixing every detail of her boat. When people asked why, she had one answer. Because the dream never left, so now I won't either. The morning Clara left, the sky was clear and the water was calm. A small group of friends stood on the dock. Some smiled, some cried. All of them were afraid for her. Clara checked her equipment one final time. She looked back at the land, the last solid ground she would feel for months. She took a deep breath, and she set sail. The harbor grew smaller behind her. Then it disappeared completely. For the first time in her life, Clara was truly, completely alone. And she had never felt more like herself. The first weeks were peaceful. Clara woke up with the sun. She checked her instruments. She adjusted her sails. She talked to herself sometimes, just to hear a voice. She watched dolphins swim beside her boat. She watched stars she had never seen so clearly. There was no noise, no traffic, no emails, no opinions, just wind, water, and her own thoughts. Some days were hard. The solitude pressed on her like weight. But Clara had trained for this too, not just her body, but her mind. She had learned that being alone with yourself is its own kind of skill. In week 6, the sky turned dark. The wind grew stronger. The waves grew taller. Clara's boat rose and fell violently in the water. For 18 hours she fought to keep control. Her hands were raw from gripping the ropes. Her body was exhausted. Water crashed over the deck again and again. At one point, a wave hit so hard that Clara was thrown across the boat. She held on. She didn't let go. She remembered something her grandfather once told her. The ocean doesn't care if you're ready. It only cares if you're strong enough to weather the storm. So she weathered it, hour after hour, until slowly the wind began to calm. The sky cleared. Clara had survived the worst night of the journey. 84 days after leaving the harbor, Clara saw something on the horizon. At first, she thought it was a cloud. But it wasn't a cloud. It was land. She stood at the front of her boat, tears running down her face. She had done it, alone across the entire ocean. She had actually done it. When she finally reached the shore, a small crowd was waiting. News of her journey had spread. People who had never met her were cheering. Clara stepped onto solid ground for the first time in nearly 3 months. Her legs were shaking. Her heart was full. Before this story ends, here is what Clara's journey teaches us. 1. A dream that doesn't disappear is trying to tell you something. 2. Preparation turns impossible into difficult, and difficult is achievable. 3. Being alone is not the same as being weak. Sometimes it's where you find your real strength. 4. Storms, in the ocean and in life, don't last forever. You only need to weather them. 5. The people who call your dream crazy are often the ones who never tried theirs. Set sail to begin a journey by boat. Clara set sail early in the morning, against all odds, succeeding even when it seems impossible. Against all odds, she crossed the entire ocean alone. Solitude, being alone, often by choice. She learned to enjoy the solitude of the sea, weather the storm, to survive something difficult. She had to weather the storm for 18 hours. Trust your gut. To believe your own instincts, Clara trusted her gut, even when others doubted her. Thank you for sailing through this story with us. If Clara's journey inspired you, remember, the dream that won't leave you alone is worth chasing. See you in the next story.